Welcome to Dental Unscripted. Where Mike Dinsio and Paula Quinn break down the practice ownership journey, one episode at a time. Starting up, buying, and running a successful dental practice.
What up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dental Unscripted. My name's Michael Dinsio, one of the co-hosts of the program. I also have my partner in crime and co-host, Paula Quinn. What's up, guys? And then we have a special guest today, friend of mine. Yes, an actual friend, not just an acquaintance or professional in the industry. But before we get into his background and all the goodies of this program, a little housekeeping. If you're listening to the episode on Dental Unscripted, Acquisition Unscripted, or Startup Unscripted, please join us. We're consolidating both podcasts into one called Dental Unscripted. It's a new brand, and it just frankly just makes it easier for us. Why have two podcasts when you can just make one? And then we're also going to be talking about practice management stuff. So historically, it's all been how to buy, how to start, all the processes that go into that. But now those of you that have been watching and listening for the last 5 years, you guys own now. So I guess we should probably give you some tips on how to do that. And hence why we have Paula now on the show, a veteran in the industry for 35 plus years and a crazy amount of experience to bring to the program. So Paula, thanks for doing this with me. Okay, so let's get it going. Dave Dahler from Menlo Transitions. Man, you and I go way back, brother. We ex-B of A guys, and you did some other stuff in real estate, but you're now a practice transition broker, a transition specialist. And today we're talking about how to find a practice. But thanks so much, buddy, for being on the program.
Oh my gosh, thank you. We've talked about doing it for a long time. It's good to finally make this a reality. It's good to see you guys.
Did he give you like 2-hour notice, Dave, or did you at least get a day?
Listen,
24
it is
hours?
unscripted. I can attest to the fact that this is very unscripted.
Very.
It was 36 hours ish, something like that. That's pretty good.
36 hours. That's plenty of time. The first thing Dave said is this how Joe Rogan does it? I'm like, I don't know, but this is how we do it. This is how we do it.
That's right. Just a quick text. Hey, let's do this. Okay. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's do it. So the topic today is how to find a dental practice. I feel like I'm on the phone all day long. So are you, Dave, with buyers looking to buy practices, and they don't know really where to start. And of course, the easy button is call a broker. And we've got a broker on the horn, but as an ex-B of A guy and guy that's been in the market for a bajillion years, that's not the only way to do it. Paula, you bought a practice, and it just kind of fell on your lap, and you kind of used your networking and that. What? Absolutely what?
It actually was through Menlo.
I know it was through Menlo, but yeah, she bought a practice.
I didn't call the broker. She just happened to be in front of me, and we had a discussion.
Yes. I just had to mute Paula because Coda in the background is going crazy on her. So I'm muting you, Paula, until you figure that out. But in the meantime, let's pivot. So Dave, how do you in your mind, what is the best way to approach the market as a buyer? Let's just softball it up, and I'll ask you the question, like when a buyer calls you, man, and you don't have anything to sell them because you only have the listings that you have, what do you tell these guys? What do you tell them?
Yeah, it's great. I think my background in banking sort of helped me to prepare for some of that, right? Like, it's the sort of the B of A way, as Mike mentioned, or as you mentioned, like we talked about, like the getting our start at the bank. That part of it was network. You're only all day, every day. And so when you walk into any sort of opportunity with that type of mentality, you start to realize that, man, there are a lot of people to know in the dental space in Phoenix, Arizona, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I am. And lots of different people have lots of different connections. And all of a sudden you become known as somebody who finances dental practices, or who is looking for a dental practice to buy. So brokers are an obvious one, obviously, right? But, then it's CPAs, and there's attorneys, and there are your territory reps at Henry Schein or Patterson or Benco, or, your commercial real estate brokers. All of those folks will know of people, opportunities that may or may not ever hit the market. It may never land in my lap as a practice broker. But those are really fantastic opportunities. And to start with networking is always, I think, a really good place to start. It spreads your tentacles out as much as humanly possible quickly.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. And Paula found her practice through networking, but I know it was a broker. But I just, you're 100% right. I think about the time that we all spend in our day, right? So like, we all have jobs, we all do what we're going to do. But like when you focus on some kind of thing, whether it's looking for a practice or, spending time with your family or whatever, like whatever that is, I think of things like in units, and if you're approaching to find a practice, I'm kind of breaking it up as like 50% of the time should be networking, and the other 50% might be bugging the crap out of the broker. So networking, let's spend 50% of the time. What are some of those things in networking? And this is not what dentists do. They don't think of networking. They don't think of having conversations and going to the dental societies and just frankly walking up to a dental office and saying, "Hey, can I buy you lunch and talk because you're a gray hair, you own a practice. Are you thinking about selling?" Paula, didn't we just have a client that just did this?
I don't know, but that's how I found my first practice, was doing hygiene there. I just was in
Oh, you did?
tipping hygiene and
What did that look like?
Well, I mean, he just mentioned getting old and wanting to have an associate. And I was like, "Oh, I have one for you." And
It's my husband.
Yes, he needs a job. He just graduated dental school. He we need to get him in here. And that's how it started, that one.
Yeah, no, I think, well, I'm thinking of a Dr.
I
V
don't know
here
who
in
you're thinking
Seattle.
about.
Dr.
Who?
Dr. V in Seattle. He
Oh,
he
yeah.
just bought his dream house, and he's like, "I own a practice." This is a true story. He owns a practice now, Dave, and he like his dream house, and it's out of Seattle. He owns a practice downtown Seattle, and he's like, "I would really love to own a dental practice right down the street from my house." And I'm like, "Bro, you own a practice, you know that, right?" And he's like, yeah, it'll be fine. And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's figure this out." So literally he goes from door to door. He does a Google search. He finds all of the practices in the area, and he literally just like walked in or found his way into each one of these dentists, whether it was writing them a letter or just going through dental societies and having conversations. So, and he literally had like 4 people send him financials. He actually
And they were
made it
all
quite,
like, "Hey, I'm
quite
open
easy.
to it." You know what I mean? It wasn't,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like the idea of cold calling, walking into an office and meeting somebody is probably like super daunting for some people.
Yeah, the people listening, the dentists, they don't do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but like, it isn't that daunting. Like writing a letter, changing the name on the top of the letter, putting it in an envelope, and sending it out to the entire radius. Right? If there's 30 doctors in the radius that you want to be in, the chances are that one says, "Yeah, yes, we'd love to sit down with you and talk about the opportunity." And now it's just your opportunity to connect with the doc, see if it makes sense, get a better idea of timeline. If there's some, if if you have some things in common in terms of how you think about patient care and how you think about your staff and how you think about running a business, and it fits in the radius and your price range and stuff like that, that's a really easy, I think that's a really easy path that a lot of folks don't do. That is a separator type of thing.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's surprising to doctors how small kind of the dental industry is. I like when you go to dental societies or like even like bankers or CPAs, like it's actually pretty interesting how when I was a banker, or even now as a buyer rep, you as a broker, Paula, even you networking in the Phoenix area, if a dentist called you guys, either one of you, and asked, hey, do you know of any practices for sale? Dave, think about before you were a broker, how our tentacles are in the industry and how many conversations we have, how many people you could have called, Dave or Paula, you could have called and said, hey, is anybody looking to sell? Even our existing clients. It's kind of surprising how people don't ask us that more often, when we were in those roles. The industry's super small and in a good way.
Yeah, it's funny. Like in every market, it feels like a dozen people do all the business, right? Like maybe it's a little bigger than that in some other markets, but I think of it from a banker's standpoint, and I say, first, like, let's make sure we get you pre-qualified to buy practice, right? Like that's the first thing I want to do as a banker, so that we give you something to hunt for as you go out there to the street to look for something to buy. On the flip side, as a broker, it's one of the first questions I ask somebody too. Like, are you pre-qualified with a bank already? Once you are, now I know that I have a qualified buyer. Look, human nature is somewhat self-serving, right? I'm going to do, I have an opportunity to finance this practice purchase as a banker. So I'm going to do some work to try to find, I'm going to call my own network of people that I've spent my time and career cultivating to try to find you the right practice for you to buy. Because, if I do, you're probably going to finance the practice with me, right? This industry had the dental industry has the banking world as it relates to dental practices is fantastic. It's so built products that are specifically built for practice purchases and startups and real estate and stuff like that, with very little out of pocket and long-term fixed rates that are fantastic, et cetera, et cetera. There are almost no other industries that have that. And so so there's a robust, list of bankers in each market, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 bankers that have networks that, that it's a super efficient way to get your name out very, very quickly, is to talk to a banker or two and let them know that you're in the market to buy, and they'll do some of the work for you too.
Yeah,
because they want a deal.
So if let's say that a banker refers me into a dental practice, they're the matchmakers. Now I don't have a broker breaking down the practice for me. I don't get that prospectus. So what do I do then if I don't know what I'm doing and I don't have your nice little package?
No, I think that's a great question, because as you get into the world of non-brokering deals, it's a perfect question, because when you go down this path of calling up the CPA or the bankers and saying, what practices do you know that are for sale, and there's no brokers on them, then all of a sudden now you're organically doing this deal without a broker, which is extremely challenging. It is hard. So what would be the first step in your guys' opinion? Dave, how would you approach that for a buyer? I have my answer, but I want to hear more from you.
I mean, not only is the banking world a built out network, there's a entire ecosystem of dental folks, right? CPAs are a really good place to start, to me, in that scenario, right?
Yep.
What you don't want is like your buddy who's a CPA, right? You want you can find out from your banker or from folks you know in the industry, from you guys, or any of your friends. I need a dental specific bank. I need a dental specific CPA. So you have a dental specific CPA. Now you've got, they know what practices should sell for. They know what add backs to add back into the
Cash
flow as they're looking to evaluate the opportunity. So there are a bunch of doctor to doctor transactions that happen without a broker all over America every day. And I've said forever, like, if you just, as a buyer or a seller, surround yourself with the right people, your chances of screwing it up are really, really small, right? Like, it's the reason banks love lending money to dentists is because, like, they do a really good job of paying it back. And they do a really good job of paying it back because they're overwhelmingly successful. So all of that is surrounding yourself with experts who sort of understand your business. And the biggest part of understanding your business is on the front end, on the way in, am I making a good, sound decision on the practice that I'm looking to buy? It's a really good place to start, I think, at least from the numbers standpoint.
So we're just looking at cash flow. We're just looking like, what's a P&L, right? That's what CPAs and bankers do. They can help you dive into that P&L.
Or Mike Dinsio. Or Mike Dinsio.
We can do a lot more. We can do a lot.
That's what I mean. Like, that's just the number side of it, right? But then, like, you guys will do a more robust analysis of all the other non-number stuff, right? The non tax return stuff, right?
Yeah. No, I think as we kind of like, as we talk about this networking thing, I'm thinking about a couple of my docs right now, literally, who have approached sellers. There's no brokers involved. The benefit of a broker, we're going to pivot here to how to approach a broker. But the benefit of a broker is having a beautiful package. Like Paula said, like, it's just nice and all the information's there. It's professional. They are in the industry, whether you trust them or not. They're in the industry. They've done a ton of transactions. I know that they're not quote unquote on your side, but they've gone through this enough times where they know what you're probably looking for. And it's interesting because financials is kind of where it starts, and that's where the valuation begins. And I will say, like, as you do this networking, you start talking to sellers without professionals. I wouldn't suggest getting too far without professionals, like Dave just said, but you know that a seller is for real if they're willing to share their financials. If it's just a chitty chat conversation and you're like, hey man, I'm really thinking about buying your practice. I don't know anything about it, but like, let's just start the conversation. Like, can I see your financials? That's a very personal thing. Right. Here's my tax returns. Right.
Yeah.
So if they don't share their financials, you're not really dating. Right. You're not really dating. You got to get to that place where you're dating. And I think that, it's obviously super easy with a broker because we all know that the seller wants to buy, but there is a dance. And I think once you gain that trust and rapport with that potential seller, I think there's a dance. I do want to make a comment. A lot of sellers are thinking their exit strategy, and maybe they're not ready to sell, but maybe they're thinking partnership. And be careful. I think we all know the dangers of partnership. Paula, like, we talk about it with a lot of our clients, and does it make sense to partner in a practice, and is it big enough? Right. Why are you making that face? What are your thoughts? Like, why not consider partnership on a smaller practice?
I mean, I would say, in my over 35-year career, I've probably not only been in a partnership in dentistry, but also have helped a few dissolve, in which ours dissolved as well. It like, you've got to really be 3 steps ahead. It's almost like having a prenup when you get married, and most people don't think about that. You're excited, it's new, you're obviously going in, you want to be 100% trusting, and you jump into this, but you don't think about that exit strategy. And then one day the exit strategy comes, and it's quite honestly as nasty as a divorce, if not nastier, because it's a lot more, well, not always a lot more money, but it's a business, it's your baby. And you gotta figure out how to depart in a way where it's fair. And so the partnerships that I've seen, they just don't think ahead, and it never ends up, it ends up bad. It ends up bad. And it's not even the ending, it's the journey in between of who gets to make the decision, who, it's even decisions on technology and team members and that vision of the practice. And if you've got two different visions, or let's say you're both strong in the same, which let's face it, a lot of dentists are. You and I, Michael, work because we have two different backgrounds and bring a lot of different things, where two dentists kind of bring the same thing, right? Their skills, their vision, lack of management, lots of things. I mean, team management. So sometimes the weaknesses are in the same spot and the strengths are in the same spot. And man, when you don't agree on it, it's a lot more challenging than when you have two different skill sets. And it's kind of like, hey, you take care of that, I'll take care of this type thing. So it's the journey, and then which ultimately ends is what prompts the end. And then the end is not good. So, I mean, I think if you're going to do a partnership, this is way off subject, you really need to solicit somebody who's experienced and can help you think about all aspects of that. Or, it's, you got two chiefs in one piece of land or tribe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough to, like, it's funny. You go to I've spoken at dental schools for years. You stand in front of the room, and I always trying to get a lay of the land of who's in the room, what your path to ownership is. How many people want to start up from scratch? And legitimately, it's like one person in the back who doesn't raise it above their shoulder. And who wants to own the business?
And it's an ortho.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Who wants to own the business outright? Who wants to buy a practice outright? And it's probably 20% of the room or 25% of the room. The overwhelming majority of the room thinks that the easiest path into ownership is partnership, because it sort of feels like it, right? The least risky on the way in. You just walk into a full schedule. You finance it, yes, but you're making money enough to cover it. You don't have to make all the decisions. It's sort of a nicer way to come in. But in that scenario, especially, like, a 28-year-old kid buys into a practice of somebody who's 55 or 60 and they're on their way out. Like, you're in different phases of your life, right? Like, it's very difficult to remain aligned on how you're going to run the business or treat the staff or patient care or invest in the company and continue to grow. And so that makes it more difficult and more challenge along the way. One side might feel they're being pulled too far or too fast, and the other one is not being pulled fast enough. But then it goes to, like, how do we fix it? How do we get in front of it? I do think it is a lot like a marriage. There's less love on the front end, right? The marriage, you at least want to stay together for the kids or for for whatever. Whereas, unfortunately, it comes down to, or fortunately or unfortunately, when in business, it comes down to money often. And I do think it's more socially acceptable, an industry standard for when you walk into a partnership to have laid out a partnership agreement for what happens if scenarios, and because everybody's thinking clearly on the front end. Nobody's upset yet.
No one's thinking about, to Paula's point, no one's thinking about divorce when you're in love, right?
That's right. We're just excited to work together. And we need to work through these scenarios, because if they happen, of course, this isn't going to happen to us until it happens, right? So I think it's like one of those things that is maybe uncomfortable for a minute, but it gives you comfort for a lifetime, a career. to have that stuff laid out on the front end, so everybody walks into it with eyes wide open.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because like most of the listeners here, they're imagining ownership to be maybe so hard, so complex. They want like that older doc mentor, and that makes sense, right? But the more deals that I do, you guys do, you all know that after 3 months the goodwill's almost already devalued.
Yeah,
Like
I mean, we do
the
it all the time.
mentorship's fun. Yeah.
Even without partnership, Michael, we've dealt with it so much where the seller stays on as associate, and that doesn't even work. That works, like Michael said, for about 3 months, and then the buyer or the young guy is like, how do I get him out of here? You know, it's like, why do I commit to this? So yeah, it's just it's so scary. And I think that's not to brag on Next Level, but I think it's where when we do buyer rep, it's so good when we stay with them after, because I think that first 3 to 6 months is really scary. But once you get through that, you feel so much more confident that it's not going to fall apart. So I think it's the same when a seller associate or a partnership happens, is you think you need this. And then you realize like, wait, this is my vision. I've been waiting on this forever. Well, maybe a whole year to 3, but forever in their eyes, and they're ready to now make it their own. And then you can't, because you've got this conflicting, like you said, Dave, vision, or, it's one going out, one coming in. They want to spend how much on just technology alone. And
yeah, that's right.
And older guys like, wait a minute, we got plenty. I've been doing dentistry for 20 years here.
I've been dropping implants with Panos. I've been dropping implants with Panos. We're fine. We don't need a CBCT. No, like I like let's pull this back to like finding a practice. But I think this is super relevant if you're thinking about buying a practice. Dave and I were just talking offline. Like a lot of deals are happening outside brokers with partnerships, and it's just because doctors think that's the easiest way to find a practice. So partnership, I'm actually glad we went here organically, because this is such a relevant topic to a non-broker deal. But let's bring it back to brokering now. So obviously brokering is kind of the easy button. It's the go-to way. And Dave, you have been involved in this industry for so long. You're selling practices today. And my question is like, what is the best way to approach a broker? Like, mentally, what kind of questions are they going to be asked? Should they talk to other brokers? Let's break it down, like the brokering scene, the other 50% of the equation.
Yeah. I would say details matter, right? Like you want to be succinct about, you want to have thought through some things before you get on the call, right? Reaching out to a broker is a very simple thing, right? They're interested in meeting new buyers. Every broker in America is interested in meeting new buyers. No question about it, right? Because we either have listings in that area, or we will market to that area because we have interested buyers, right? It's all interconnected. But what you want to be is definitive about what you're looking for, right? Yeah. So where do I want to be? Oh, I want to be anywhere within an hour of Phoenix. Like that's tricky, right? It's a lot of stuff, right? Like, so understanding your skill set, what type of practice you're looking for, your production capability, your ability to get financed. So one of the first questions a broker will ask is if you're working with a bank yet. And if you are you pre-approved? And yes should be the answer. Even if you don't have a banker yet and you want suggestions on who to work with in a particular market, a broker will be really good with that stuff too, to make sure that you're in, that you start working with the right 2 or 3 banks. Sometimes you find that like you work with a bank who doesn't understand dental, You walk into your current local bank, right? They might tell you, they might not have a dental specific product. They might tell you that they'll put you in the SBA bucket, or we'll do a conventional, but we need somebody to co-sign with you, or we need you to come up with a down payment. All of that stuff shouldn't be part of the equation. Those are outlier scenarios. You should likely expect to have 100% financing, expect to be able to buy ARs or get working capital on top of the 100% financing. That should be the expectation walking in. So, totally. But bankers brokers will want to know that you're a serious buyer, right? And that you're serious about wanting a particular area, and that you're qualified or pre-qualified to buy a practice that might cost $800,000. So that you're not running down the path with somebody, oh my gosh, it didn't work, you didn't get financed, oh my gosh. We never crossed that bridge. You want to make sure if a seller's excited, if you meet a seller, they're excited about working together, about transitioning this thing this business that they've built over the course of their entire career, and handing over the keys, that it's somebody who can afford it and who can get financed and do it. And before they get all excited about it, you want to make sure that you've checked off as many of those boxes as you can on the broker side, to make sure that you're doing right by your client and giving that person maybe more attention than you would somebody else who hasn't gone through the paces of doing that stuff on the front end.
I will say that, like, I will say it's very rare that someone can't get financed, right? I mean, there's definitely some people that can't, for sure. But if I lined up 10 people, how many of those can't get financed? It's probably 4, maybe 3, So it's pretty.
I think it's lower than that.
It's probably lower. So I love what you said, because banking is for sure, or lending is for sure, something that makes sense that you would be interested in. I'm thinking about like the fit, right? Like, to your point, Dave, like if they don't come prepared with what they want and what matters, like, what are we doing here? Why are we even having a conversation? Right. So like Paula and I are always talking to doctors, just yesterday is like, okay, so what kind of dentist are you? Like, what don't you like doing? How much money do you need to make? The doctor you're talking about yesterday, Paula, I asked him how much money did they need to make, and she said 250,000 had to. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. You need 250? Well, no, I actually don't need any. My husband makes plenty of money. We could be break even for 2 years. I'm like, well, you need 250 or you need nothing? What's the answer here? Right. And so like, to that point, like, get your apples straight, because if I call a broker and I tell Dave, hey, I need $100,000 minimum, what do you got? Dave's like, well, I got 10 practices. Or if someone calls you, Dave, and says, well, I need 250, you'd be like, well, I have like 1.
Yeah.
Right. It's a perfect example.
Yeah, I'll give you another example. Like, I have a doc who called me and said, hey, here's what we need. Like, my husband's a dentist. I'm a dentist. We need the ability to grow in the same building. We want to work in the same building, and we want to work at the same time. So I don't want like 4 operatories where I'm there Tuesdays and Thursdays and he's there Mondays and Wednesdays. And so like that, while that limits the pool of practices they're going to be able to look at. So be it, right? We're not wasting
anyone's time, right?
That's right.
It's like, why go in? I mean, I know your mind can change, obviously, but that's why I think there's a difference between need and want. And I love that you said that, because it's like, if you have to have this, there might be one practice. Let's not waste anyone's time. Let's wait till that practice is available. If there's 30, okay, we can go look at all 30, but I know we're all used to, I don't want to say wasting our time. We're all used to, like, going out and doing things and it doesn't come to a conclusion, and that's okay. That's part of our business. But if we can limit that, not only just for us, but for them, I mean, like, why do that?
Or for the seller who wants to sell their house, their baby, and
who's dying to just retire and get out of there, and they're providing like you said, Michael, they're intimate tax returns, and we have to sneak in after hours so the team doesn't find. I mean, it's a lot that goes into it. So let's be real, 100%.
Like I had a client, one of our clients, Paula, where on the front end, I hated the deal. The attorney hated the deal. The CPA hated the deal. I valued it. Wasn't even close to what they're asking for. There's no broker involved, of course. And so the price was like up here and it should have been down here. If a broker was involved, the price probably would have been down here closer to my number. And everybody was setting this really hard expectation with the buyer. Like no one really likes this thing. Why are you on it? Well, and the buyer's like, I like it for this. All right, let's move forward. So we get into contract and we do the big due diligence and we practice analysis and all the things. And I still hate it. Everybody hates it. The attorney hates it. And then the buyer literally bounced for all the reasons we said in the very beginning. And it was a really big fun exercise for everyone. Like, you know what I mean? And so look, like there's going to be things that break a deal up, deal breakers, things that you didn't know on the front end. But I think the goal is to what? Dave, isn't that the value of a broker, is having all the right information in the freaking beginning? Yes.
Yeah. Level set, like one of the things that a broker will do is level set the expectation for the seller, right? There are lots of sellers out there who believe that their practice is worth X. Building the same way, right?
Their blood, sweat, and tears went in it, right?
Heck yeah,
baby.
You should see the upside of if I did this, and I'm only here 2 days a week, and if I was here 5 days a week, we would
well, you weren't.
double the revenue. Well, maybe, right? Like maybe we would. Maybe we can go back to what we did in 2019 if somebody did the blood, sweat, and tears to get it there. But should they pay you for it today? Probably not.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, like I agree. I think it's level setting the expectation first for the seller, and then it's we want to part of the job of part of anybody's job really in you mentioned it, we mentioned it a couple times. This industry is a really small one. Your reputation follows you wherever you go, and if you do things the right way and you take care of people the right way, people will know that, and they'll also know if you don't, right? So the job of the broker is also to ask the seller the tough questions about, like, well, why was there this dip in your revenue, and what'd you do to fix it, and why do you only have one person who's been working for you for more than 6 months, and why is this person being paid this much money when the market says they should be making this much money,
right?
And some of that, and then what else are we running through the books that might look different, that might look different for a buyer post sale, right? Yes. Like all of that stuff should be clearly illuminated in the marketing packet or the prospectus or whatever you want to call it, so that when a buyer looks at it, they can A, trust the information that they're seeing, and B, it makes for a more educated decision without having to do a whole bunch of digging and investigative work to figure it out.
Totally.
So I think that's a big part of it. I do want to circle back to a point you made a minute ago, Mike, though. Like with your client, like it is about the trusting your team of people that you work with too, right? Like if you surround yourself with experts, that's one thing. If you listen to them is a whole nother thing, right? Like if everybody's telling you that this is the wrong thing, like, and you're just going to go rogue and do it anyway, you're kind of asking for what happens there, right? Like, so it is like, it always comes down to sort of trust in in the people that you work with. And it's why you want to experience people. But that's only half of the equation. The other half of the equation is you need to really listen to them and take because everybody's looking out for your best interest. Really,
that's right.
It's like I said, it's hard to screw it up.
Yeah.
Unless you sometimes try to run through stop signs, which is not it's not a great idea, is it?
No.
Human
Get you in an
nature.
accident
We like to take the hard route all the time. That's what we do.
It makes for an exciting life, but it's not the easiest way for sure.
That's right.
I think that's perfect. We had a question actually come in, and I think it's a good one, but it's a bit loaded. So what do dentists need to do in order to prepare their production or show their production, which is a great question, and how to gauge the amount we can finance. So it's actually I'll take a little bit of this. You guys can narrow in on, Paula, why don't you take the production and how to get that? I'll take Dave and I can take the amount of finance, but I will say that what you produce is becoming more and more important to the lenders. David, do you remember when we were bankers? I mean, it was important, but it seems like it's way more important these days. I'm not a banker anymore, a lender, but today it's like it matters. Production really matters, and it can absolutely affect whether the underwriter's comfortable lending. And so, Paula, before we get to how do you get the production reports and all that stuff, David, do you agree with that? Is about how much they can get financed and all that?
Yeah, I think it's important to explain the mechanics of how the banking side of it works as it relates to that stuff, right? So if very simple example, if you buy $1 million practice and hygiene it does $1 million in revenue, and hygiene is 30% of that, which is sort of industry standard, right? Now you have $700,000 of doctor production. Yep. If you produce $700,000 or more, you've hit the threshold for what a bank needs in order for you to buy that particular practice. Yep. If you produced in the last 12 months $500,000, they need to account for the gap, and the gap in that is $200,000 in production, and you have to, and in that scenario, you need to pay an associate on $200,000 worth of production, and at 30%, that's $60K, right? Is that math right? It seems right.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
So that gets added back to the cash flow as an expense for you to buy that practice. Oftentimes that could be the difference between them saying yes to an approval and them saying no to an approval, because it's an expense that wouldn't be there for somebody with higher production numbers, right? So that part of it is really, really important as you go when you're buying a solo practice, and the margins are not generally enormous that it can absorb that type of payment to an associate doctor for a one doc practice, which $1 million practice is probably, still a one doc practice. It's probably not 1.5 yet. So I think it's really, really important. Sometimes it's difficult, and Paula can get into some of the details of that. But if you've switched jobs and stuff like that, if you had a down year, if you were off for maternity leave during the last 12 months, all of that
matters.
All
fee
of that
schedules,
is taken into consideration.
Even fee schedules. David, I love that you're talking about the volume part. So like the dollars, the amount, and like this practice does this amount, and can the buyer do that amount? And how are we making that shore up? How's that level? But then there's another factor to it, and it's like the actual clinical part of it. So like we're talking, Dave, you and I are ex-bankers. We're talking about dollars, right? Yeah. You can do $1 million bucks. Oh, they do $1 million bucks. Cool. We're good. But then there's another factor to it. And it's probably where Paula's head's at with the production. What kind of production is it? Like, right, Paula? Like, are you picking up what I'm putting down there? Like, as far as
Yep. Well, if I was an associate at a position right now, I mean, number one, you should be paying attention to your production. It's pretty simple. You're getting paid on net production, most likely, or collection. So you should already have some type of spreadsheet where you're tracking this stuff. But, to Michael's point, I would probably also track your crowns, like how you can run reports either in the software, or you can start manually tracking these today. But it's really like, did I do, 20 crowns per month? Did I did 15? Because if you're like a Medicaid office or a DHMO where you're collecting, very little to none on some of these procedures, you know, and you're going to pull your production report, it's not going to reflect that. So, you know, I would be tracking, you know, if you're doing clear aligners, if you're a doc that does Botox, if you're a doc that does, you know, crown and bridge and all that stuff, I would be tracking my big rock procedures as well. I mean, you could track it all. They're easy to run reports on this. It's, you know, procedure by production. It shows the quantity. It shows the amount you made. And then know the fee schedule, the average fee schedule, or the UCR, because if you're a PPO office versus a fee for service office, you're going to have, you know, your production is going to look a lot greater. So I would probably know a little bit of that too. Like if this was not a Medicaid patient, this normally would have averaged out at about $900 for these crowns. So you can show that, and then just show the percent of the office was 50% Medicaid or DHMO, where obviously I didn't have the ability to produce 5,000 a day, but had this been a normal PPO office, this is, you know, my quantity. So I don't know if that's what they were looking for, but that's what I would be doing.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about that doc we're talking to right now in Phoenix, where the production or the collection's like 1.4. And like Dave and I were saying, just make sure you can do 1.4, but is it the kind of work you can do?
Right. We were doing more from the other aspect, but absolutely. You know, it's one thing that we do for you is look at those codes and say, hey, you know, this office was 50% clear aligners. Can you even do clear aligners? Nowadays we can make that happen, but you know, whatever, all on fours, whatever that might be, you know, you want to make sure that you align with the procedures in the office. There's so much that goes into it, but yeah.
I know.
That's another thing on the broker side too, that like helps to, you'll have a better idea of what sort of procedures are being done on the way in.
Like the top
with
20 or whatever.
Yeah. That's you want to find that stuff out as quickly as you can. If you can't do any ortho and they're doing some Invisalign and that makes up 25% of the business,
Dave, we got solutions for all of that, though.
I mean, listen, it's just more proof that they need you guys. That's it.
Well, you said it, not me, but I couldn't agree more.
Right.
No, like I think the big picture is, like, as we kind of close down on final thoughts here, there's just so much to going into buying a practice. You need a team, but being that the highlights that I took away, and then I'll pass it to you guys to close it down, is like, get creative, network, have conversations, shake hands, kiss babies, do all of the stuff. And you're going to find yourself having better conversations with sellers that maybe have brokers or don't. And then if there is a brokered practice, be prepared for specific questions. Those were my big takeaways. Dave, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Paula.
Yeah, I think I think you hit it right. Like finding yourself a team matters. I've said that a couple times now. Once you're sure that this is the path you want, right? Like I'm ready to be an owner. And a lot of times people ask you, like, hey, when do you know it's time? You'll just know. Like there's not a better answer to me. You just wake up and you're tired of working for somebody else, or you're just ready for the new challenge, or whatever it is. Once you decide in your head that you're ready, you gotta go. Like, get yourself surrounded with people, put your name out there. Confidentiality matters, right? Like, and you want to make sure that folks know that. You certainly don't want it being blasted all over the place that your employer sees or whatever. And now you find yourself needing to find something tomorrow, as opposed to being able to take your time and doing the transition the right way. But once you say that you want to do it, just don't look back. Go surround yourself with really good people and listen to what they have to say, and you'll find something that makes sense, and it'll end the way it's supposed to end, which is a successful transition, because they overwhelmingly are.
Yeah. Paula?
I don't really have a takeaway. I mean, I have lots of takeaways from today, but what I would also say, just being a practice owner myself, is no practice is going to be perfect. The chairs aren't going to be perfect. The equipment's not going to be perfect. Maybe the paint on the walls. I think cash flow and procedure is the most important thing, in location. So if it's in a location you like, it's putting off the cash you need, you can do majority of the dentistry within reason. Everything else can be fixed. And by the way, Michael taught me this when I bought mine. Patients are already coming in. So even if the chairs from the 1970s, that 800, 900, 1200 patient base is visiting that office. So
They already,
They're used to sitting in those
yeah,
chairs.
they know that it looks like crap and they're okay with it.
Like that. So you're not, this isn't a new, you know, if you want to do a startup, if you want to build a house from scratch, then go that route. If you're buying existing, that kitchen may not be set up the exact way you want it. But it's going to do fine. And you can eventually change those things if it really matters. But I think once you get in there, you'll find like, I don't really need to fix this. It's not broke. It's fine. It works. The team loves it or functions with it. The patients function with it. I just want to do that because that was a tip I had a hard time with. I had 1970 chairs and I was like, oh, no new patients are going to want to come in this place. They came in just fine. It didn't affect that. So
yeah,
that's
good.
what I wanted to throw out there.
God, we covered so much: partnership, how to find a practice, how to look at a practice, how to get lending. Like we literally covered 17 episodes. So there you go, folks. Listen, rewind, listen again, rewind, take what you want from it. But it was a pleasure. Dave, it's been too long. We got to catch up sometime.
Great to meet you, Dave.
You too, Paula. Thank you so much, guys. I sure appreciate the opportunity.
All right, guys. Well, another episode of Dental Unscripted. Let's shut it down. Tune into our next episode, which is probably next week, and be looking for some more stuff on how to buy, start, and run a practice. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Let us know how you like the show. Rate us on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe and follow for more.